Hey everybody, it's Alex, the founder and CEO at Motoroso, and we just finished installing this FSPE full body kit. Now this thing is a splitter, a skid plate, skirts, and a full rear diffuser with spats. We made a full video about the details of this kit and all the costs, but in this video, we're gonna show you how to install it step by step. Now, if you like the way this looks, of course, you can buy this at motoroso.com. We'll put links to that in the description, or you can contact us toll free at 833-668-6767. And of course, we've got lots of other goodies on this build, so make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel here to see all of the mods we've been doing on our Focus RS. But for right now, let's dig in and show you how to install this stuff step by step.
The process for removing the front bumper is well documented on YouTube, or you've probably already done it before, so we're going to skip past that portion and start with the bumper removed. First, remove the plastic bumper guard. Then remove the factory lower splash tray. Now, if you're using the chassis mounted splitter rods, choose your desired placement for the brackets. We decided to go wider. Install the first bolt, then align the bracket vertically. Now drill your secondary mounting holes. Install the second mounting bolt and nuts and tighten all your hardware. Now remove the lower mesh from your bumper. Loosely hang the bumper back on the car. Now you're going to mark the bumper to identify where the brackets will come through the mesh, as well as measure how low they drop down so you can cut the correct size hole in the mesh for these brackets. Get your bumper back off the car and reinstall the lower mesh piece. Using your marks as a guide for the width and measurements for the height, cut the appropriate size hole for the brackets. Make sure to trim off any sharp mesh ends. We also used a little matte black paint to protect from rust. Now we can get on to assembling the FSPE splitter. Start by installing the brake ducts using the M6 hardware. If you want the FSPE logo to appear in white, apply the provided white vinyl to the center layer of the splitter. Starting with the left side, line up the lower layer of the splitter, and the OEM holes in the bumper, and use the supplied hardware to loosely attach the splitter to the bumper. Then repeat this process on the right, and then move towards the center and install the center piece of the splitter along with the lower section, and finish placing all the hardware through the OEM holes on the bumper. Before tightening everything, make sure the alignment of the splitter looks good on the bumper, and then tighten your hardware. Using the supplied hardware, install the fins on both sides. Reinstall the front bumper, being careful not to scratch the splitter rod brackets with the exposed mesh. If you're not using the FSPE skid plate, install bolts and spacers at the rear edge of the splitter. Then use the long screws to fasten the ends of the splitter to the OEM splash guard. Now to install the splitter rods. Remove one of the splitter rod ends from the splitter rod and loosely mount them on the bracket. Then thread the splitter rod back on to determine how you want them to look, being careful to measure evenly left and right. Now measure the placement of your mounting holes. Make sure to double and triple check this before you drill. Once you're happy with everything, drill your holes for your splitter rods. Now, clearance was tight for the bolt between the bracket and the bumper, so we cut down a 5mm Allen wrench so we could fit it between the bumper and the bolt. That allowed us to fully tighten that bolt. To protect the finish of your splitter rod, use a cloth and a wrench to tighten the splitter rod and the lock nuts. That completes the installation of the splitter. Now you have the option of installing the protective trim, which is optional and can be applied many different ways, and you may have chosen a cool color to go with your scheme. Now we decided to only use it on the underside for a little bit of scrape protection, and we also found that a heat gun helped to soften the material to make it easier to install. Have fun getting creative with this, or leave it off for that nice crisp clean look. If you got the FSPE skid plate, let's get that installed. First, loosely place the skid plate and hang it over the brace using the little flap on the bottom of the skid plate. Then place your rear bolt to support the skid plate in place. Making sure the spacers are in place, then send the bolts through the skid plate, through the rear side of the splitter, and fasten to secure the skid plate. Then finish placing the hardware at the rear of the skid plate and fully tighten down all the hardware, and that's the skid plate installed. Next up, let's get the side skirts installed. Remove the pop clips from the OEM side skirts. Use a box to balance your FSPE skirt closer to the panel just to make things a little easier. Now, reaching behind the OEM skirt, loosely fasten the front end of the FSPE side skirt with the supplied hardware. Now go to the rear end and loosely fasten with the supplied hardware, making sure to use the second layer of the skirt and the thicker of the two shims provided by FSPE. Line up the skirt by pulling it towards the outermost position front and rear, then drill holes at the innermost position of each mounting hole in the skirt. Now this will allow you some flexibility in how you adjust the skirt. You can move it about 1 inch in and out. Reaching behind the plastic OEM skirt, install hardware in all of the remaining mounting holes, making sure to use the thinner shim at the 5th hole from the back. Now tighten down all the hardware on the whole skirt. Then reinstall all the pop clips. Install your side fin with the supplied hardware, and now repeat this whole process on the other side. Now let's get on with installing the rear diffuser of this kit. Begin by loosely assembling the two major pieces of the rear diffuser with the supplied hardware. These mounting holes are elongated to allow for some adjustment as necessary. We decided to set ours in the middle position. We did this by evenly marking all the way out and all the way in, and then finding the midpoint and snugging it down at the midpoint. Now tighten down all the hardware. There are 6 total all threads, 2 short, 2 medium, and 2 long. Assemble all of your all threads with the hardware as seen in these instructions. Now locate the 4 holes in the frame surrounding the rear differential. Starting with the 2 holes towards the front of the car, insert the longest of the all threads into those 2 holes. Now you want to thread these so there are 3 3/8 inch of thread left from the underside of the RS frame to the bottom of the all thread. Once that's in place, fully tighten that hardware at the frame. Now do the same thing with the medium length on the 2 holes towards the rear around the differential. You want to set these up so that there are 2 7/8 inch of thread from the frame to the bottom of the all thread. Once you've got that set up, fully tighten the hardware at the frame. Next, remove the 5/16 inch bolts at the rear bumper. They're located just inside the rear exhaust tips. Also remove the speed nuts on top. Now insert the 2 short length all threads into those holes. There's no specific length you need to set these to for the threaded rod. You just need to adjust it so that the diffuser fits under the exhaust, and we're going to do that later. Now this part can be tricky to do as one person, but we were able to pull it off with a few little tricks. First, we prepared all 6 of the all threads to be ready to receive the rear diffuser. We did this by placing a small amount of masking tape on each one to hold the washers in place, and then we applied Loctite on the threads. Then, balancing the diffuser on my feet under the car, I lined up the 2 mounting holes underneath the exhaust tips and placed the washers and nuts and just hand tightened it. Then I slid under the car and guided the diffuser onto the 4 all threads around the differential and placed the washers and nuts on the exposed threads. Before tightening down on the hardware, I aligned everything to make sure it was exactly where I wanted it, then fully tightened down all the hardware. Make sure your diffuser is not touching your exhaust. And lastly, let's get started installing the rear spats. Holding the 2 layers of the spats together, determine your desired placement. Use a marker to mark the first hole. We started with the furthest rear hole. Drill your first hole into the rear bumper and loosely attach the spat with the supplied hardware. Now line up the spat exactly where you want it and mark the location of the second and third mounting holes. Now in order to mirror the exact location on the other side, we removed the spat and we used a ruler to measure the exact location of each hole, and then we measured and marked on the opposite side. You can carefully drill these holes through the spat layers. We then installed the remaining hardware and fully secured the first spat. Then we drilled out the holes on the other side and mounted the second spat with the supplied hardware, and that completes the installation of your FSPE body kit.
All right, we hope you found this video helpful. And as you can see, the installation's pretty straightforward. You just need to take your time with it. Now, of course, if you want to shop for this body kit, hit us up at Motoroso.com, where you can reach us on live chat, or you can call us toll free at 833-668-6767. Now, we made another video talking about the details of this kit with a bunch more beauty footage. Check that video out right over here, and subscribe to our channel for all the amazing mods we're doing on our Focus RS build. Thanks for watching.